ultimately what it's going to come down to.
Got the rookies versus the vets are starting us off first. Then we have our Peacock exclusive, I think, is Chiefs versus Dolphins, which
Yep.
is the next game. I personally am rooting for Miami, but as we were saying when we were prepping for the show on Monday, it is extremely hard to win football games in Kansas City in January.
Yeah. And especially when you're going into the playoffs the way the Dolphins have, they're banged up, man.
Yeah.
They limped into the playoffs.
There's a lot of injuries in Miami right now.
Yeah.
They have a
their
tough
two best
game.
pass rushers out for the season. Their top cornerback, he's been dealing with an injury, unclear on how healthy he'll be for that game. Mostert, Jalen Waddle, they both missed the game on Sunday night with an injury, so we'll see if they're good to go, if they're 100% for that game. And it's going to be freezing in Kansas City. I mean, they just got a wicked
bundle it
snowstorm.
up.
I don't know if you've seen the videos out of there. I mean, it's like whiteout blizzard, and the wind is just whipping down there. So I don't think it'll be that cold come game day, but it's going to be below freezing. It's going to be icy. It's going to be cold.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game.
Tough for a team that's used to playing in South Florida. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And there is high chances, though. Sweet.
So, welcome in TikTok.
Welcome in TikTok. We do have high chances for the struggles to continue for the Chiefs, though. Maybe.
That's true.
They kind of limped into the playoffs as well, just because of how they finished out without that much confidence.
I will say, though, for Kansas City, their offense has been struggling, but this is the best their defense has played their entire time they've had Mahomes here. And it's January. It's postseason football. That's where you win games, is with your defense.
Oh, yeah.
You flashback a few weeks ago when they played the Bengals. Bengals were Cincinnati. They were hanging with the Chiefs that whole time, and then in the fourth quarter, that pass rush stepped up and just wreaked havoc on that final drive that the Bengals went on to try to tie the game up. And I think that'll be the key for Kansas City.
Definitely.
And just Mahomes protect the football, which he struggled a bit earlier in the year, and that's where some of these losses came from. But the past against Cincinnati, he did a really good job. And it's just with how experienced this team is, I think that just that one game might have helped them get their mojo back just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I will say before we move on to our next matchup, genius move by Roger Goodell and NBC to put this game on Peacock. Get all the Swifties to have to buy a Peacock subscription.
I nearly forgot about that.
Taylor.
I almost forgot about that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Absolutely genius move.
Thank you. Our next game, finishing off the AFC, Steelers versus the Bills. And I'm just going to say this before we actually get into anything. Forget the turnovers in Buffalo. The Bills are on fire right now. You know, New York football is not dead, people. The Giants and the Jets kind of died out on you guys, but you got Buffalo. There's something to be hyped about. They finished off this season with a huge chip on their shoulder. They had one of the toughest schedules in football this season. I'm not going to lie to you. They played contenders. Brutal. They played contenders.
Yeah, I mean, you played both teams that were in last year's Super Bowl, the red hot Dallas Cowboys, Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, before the injury.
Caught the Broncos on their hot streak. Had to play the Dolphins twice, beat them twice, pretty handily in Buffalo in Orchard Park too.
Yeah.
So honestly, and they had to deal with a lot of injuries, a lot of players getting banged up, and they just overcame adversity and powered it out. And I will say, you know, if this was the Steelers we were seeing halfway through the season, I think Buffalo would roll them. But Pittsburgh put it together.
Oh yeah.
Towards the end there. Now, I mean, it's that brand of Steelers football we were used to seeing. They playing good defense.
They picked it up
and running the ball really well. I mean, Jalen Warren and Najee Harris have just been, almost unstoppable.
Yeah.
Down the stretch of the season.
That run game is tough. I do think though, in the end, outcome, I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to stop this momentum that the Bills have.
Yeah.
I think they're just it's going to be a barn burner, and all these games this weekend have the potential to be a barn burner. So we got a great weekend of football ahead of us. So
And just because they'll be low scoring doesn't mean there aren't going to be big plays.
yeah,
I think it's just, the defenses here, they're going to start stepping up.
so the games you can't be out getting something from the fridge during those games.
Yeah.
You got to keep your eyes peeled so you kind of catch every moment.
The big key for Pittsburgh on how close they're going to be able to keep that thing is what's JJ Watt's health going to be like? Because he suffered an injury. I right now cannot remember what it was, but it was something to his knee. Is he going to be able to play? And if not, that's going to be a huge loss for this Pittsburgh pass rush.
That will be a huge downset for them. I actually didn't know if he was not going to be playing or not. I thought he was in.
Yeah. All right.
Starting off the NFC, Packers, Cowboys, super young team versus the Red Hot Cowboys. It's crazy that I think the Packers are like the youngest team in the NFL right now. One of the youngest teams.
They are hands down, they're the youngest team
in there in the playoffs. They kind of spoiled the Saints' hopes, but the Seahawks won on Sunday anyways too. So
yeah, there, Brody. See him in our chat there on TikTok.
Welcome. We see you, man. How you doing? Good morning. You're in the cave. We're talking Packers, Cowboys. Leave your opinion in the chat if you like.
Back to Packers, Cowboys, and just the NFL in general, man. How did this wild card weekend has some insane matchups? We got. We didn't even touch on Tyreek returning.
Phone lines are open.
We didn't even touch on Tyreek returning to Kansas City for that Dolphins game. And now this one, Mike McCarthy hosting his old team. He was that Packers head coach for a long time. Now here he's got his Cowboys at the 2 seed.
That is
hosting.
I never thought about it like that.
Hosting them. But give me some of your predictions for this game, Caveman.
Honestly, as a certified Cowboys hater, I will say they are looking extremely solid. And I do love to see an underdog story, with the young team coming in to get the win. But I don't know, man.
If you want a young, underdog story, you can pick the Detroit Lions, because Detroit Lions that's so much worse.
The Lions this season is like a Cinderella story, and we'll move on to that one in a second. But I feel like that secondary and the pass rush of the Cowboys is extremely solid, and with that young quarterback in Green Bay, I feel like they may be able to fluster him as well, similar to Michigan and Washington. But it's two different teams. The defense on Green Bay is looking extremely tough too.
Yeah.
So,
Jordan Love, he has been shaky at some points this year, but honestly, I think his first season as a starter for Green Bay has gone better than Favre and Rodgers have.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he was the only first-year starter for the Packers to take them to the playoffs. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun too much, but kind of looks like Green Bay did it again. They found another generational talent at quarterback.
And it sucks too, because Jordan Love was getting hated on when the Packers first drafted him. And people were so confused why they even picked a quarterback. And now he's balling.
How did they keep doing it? Like, my Broncos have had
14 quarterbacks since Peyton Manning. 14 quarterbacks.
And the Packers is just like, every 20 years we'll just draft another guy who'll just become our starter for the next 20. And then we'll send them off to the Jets and then Vikings.
And then he'll get injured.
Yeah.
They get it. They need to give him another flag when he returns, I swear. Give Aaron Rodgers another flag.
Jordan Love, he is a first-year starter with a super young team, taking on a Cowboys team that has been just straight out dominant at home. Yeah. They're undefeated at home this season, and their average margin of victory is very large at home. Very, very large. That pass rush is ferocious. That secondary is incredibly ball hawking and opportunistic. Yeah, and Jordan Love he's had some air balls there, so they could be feasting.
We'll go quickly through the rest of these playoff games. Then we'll head to a quick break.
Lions, Rams. The teams that swapped quarterbacks a couple years ago now facing each other in the playoffs. Jared Goff sent off from LA because they didn't think they had what it takes for him to be a winner. Now he's hosting his old team in Stafford. All those years in Detroit, he's coming back for their first home playoff game in 30 years. Wow, what a story.
He has the chance, Matt Stafford, to complete the saddest ways that you can lose a football game in Detroit. Home football game, home playoff game against your old quarterback. They've got the longest field goal in history that doinked in. There's so many ways that the Lions have lost that are just like completely demoralizing. And Matt Stafford winning this home playoff game, their first ever, would just be like, that would just complete the story. And this season for Detroit is kind of like a Cinderella story. Nobody ever thought that this would happen.
This game, this might be our highest scoring game of the weekend. Detroit's defense, while it's played well at times, is still giving up the 9th most points per game. And Rams, man, they're Stafford, he's finally healthy. Nakua, Cup's returning to his old form. Kyron Williams has been a beast. But, you flip it to the other side of the ball. Jared Goff's been on fire. Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the 1-2 punch of Montgomery and Gibbs.
Yeah, that offense is like, it's so much crazier than you actually think.
We can see some points in this one.
Oh, yeah.
And then move over to our final game, Eagles, Buccaneers. Man, shout out Baker Mayfield. It's so hard not to root for that guy.
Yeah, he honestly led that team
really,
like crazy.
What a job! You're coming in to fill in for Tom Brady. Those are about the biggest shoes you can fill.
Seriously, though.
And to his credit, man, that team battled through all sorts of adversity, and they toughed it out. They made it to the playoffs. And they get to host the game against a struggling Eagles team, like a team that
took a loss.
Also limped into the playoffs.
Took a loss from the Cardinals in Philly. This game's undecided for me, really, just because of the Philly struggles. They looked like the hottest team, the first 11 weeks, and that completely just went downhill from there. It's been a crazy roller coaster for the Eagles this season. But I don't know, man. They kind of sputtered out a little bit.
So the last 2 weeks, man, James Conner, Saquon Barkley ate them up running the football and catching it. And now you got Rashad White, who has been maybe the best, but at least one of the best pass-catching backs in the league this year, which is what the Eagles have really been struggling with mightily down the stretch here.
Yeah. It is going to be an insane game to watch, because Tampa has a huge chip on their shoulder. Now, as a Saints fan, I need to go look back at the schedule and see where they got that tiebreaker on us, because we could have won the division, honestly, at the last game if Carolina could put up some points. But that's a story for another day. That does about cover our final games. We're going to get back to team building exercise and talk a little bit about the Pro Bowl after this break. So we will see everybody in just a few moments.